Celeste, with the minimum amount of diagonal dashes, is one of the most challenging yet fun Celeste challenges I have done. My last Celeste video went through the A-sides of the 9 chapters, but today I'm gonna get 100% with the minimum amount of diagonal dashes. You heard me right, all cassette tapes, all crystal hearts, all red berries, all B-sides, all C-sides, the Moonberry, and we'll also do Pico A because why not? I recommend watching the first video to have a bit of knowledge of the rules and all that, but before we start, I'm going to clarify some things. I repeat, bubbles are not dashing. That's the rules I went on, since bubbles don't require the dash button and they also don't trigger winged strawberries. A lot of people told me that I should have just used demo hypers in farewell instead of supers, but some were also mixed about it, so I'll only use them if necessary. Lastly, it takes more diagonal dashes than you'd think, so keep in mind this is a minimum amount challenge. Some are clearly unavoidable for 100%. I'll go over the red berries first while mentioning cassette tapes, crystal hearts and Pico A throughout. Then I'll tackle the B-sides and the C-sides, ending it all with a Moonberry. So grab a snack cause this is a long one. Most red berries in Forsaken City are really easy, it's the first level. Along the way, we encounter this section, where we get another berry, but where we also find this chapter's crystal heart. If you've played Celeste or have enough brain cells to solve this puzzle, you probably saw the issue. The crystal heart isn't here. Well, of course it isn't, you have to activate it. And to do this, you want to have to dash in the order the PC shows in the direction of those colored birds. 3 of those times though, the birds tell us to dash diagonally. What I'm trying to say is that we need to dash diagonally 3 times to activate the crystal heart. And before you ask, everyone has the same code and it cannot be changed, so they are required. Our total now bumps to 5. I guess I should have mentioned that it took us 2 to beat all side. After this issue though, we can pretty comfortably get the cassette tape to unlock the B-side. The hardest red berry is totally this one. It seems like you can't go through the top path, and if you try to go for the bottom path, it's an even worse option. However, by climbing this wall on the side, we can skip the first crystal and have enough height to reach the next one with a horizontal one, allowing us to get the berry. There's nothing else in this chapter, so we can move on to okay, I missed 2 berries. This isn't the last time this happens, by the way. Both are easy, but come on, this one is hidden in an already separate area. Old side screwed us last time, so hopefully dream blocks won't be much of an issue this time around. But before then, we can actually get the crystal heart by chaining dashes with the screen transitions. When we do unlock the dream blocks though, I got quite surprised. Every single berry in this entire area requires cardinal dashes instead of diagonal ones. The cassette tape is also accessible and easy to get. Now we get to the section with the 2 diagonal dashes. Since last time I didn't get the strawberries, whether you count this as 2 additional dashes or not is your choice. Never mind, if you count this as 2 additional ones, you're just wrong. In any case, we can exit and restart at the chase sequence checkpoint. Here, there's one specific room that seemed impossible. Dashing upwards at the block didn't seem to work, and neither did dashing upwards immediately after exiting the first one. Or so I thought, but by jumping on exit, it is actually possible. One of the last strawberries requires you to think more about your dashes, but really there's nothing more to the chapter. We can move on to the resort. And to be honest, there's nothing worth mentioning up until the Pico 8. Which I decided to beat for some reason. What makes this extra weird is the fact that you cannot grab onto the wall, and you can't neutral jump either, so if a room is hard, we deal with it. Luckily, there aren't any major hard rooms in here. There's this one with the chest where you need a precise updash, but 800 meters is one of the rooms that gave me the most amount of trouble. I tried about everything. Horizontal, vertical, trying to get to the higher wall without wall jumping. I quickly realized that wall jumping was going to be the way, and after a long time, I got it. 1300 meters seemed impossible, but with a really tight updash, you can get the key. You can then grab the balloon to refresh your dash and somehow horizontal dash through everything. However, it was 1800 meters that stepped up the difficulty by miles, to the point where I resorted to pause buffering. This still barely helped though. I spent a really long time in this room. It was really dang tight, but it is possible, thankfully. This balloon-stacked room also seemed impossible. It seems to be a recurring theme here, huh? There's just no way this kind of height is possible, right? Well, if you do everything down to the last pixel, you can. But this was overwhelmingly hard. Pico 8 really is a challenge of its own. When I unlocked my second dash, I did a spike jump here somehow, then reached the final room, which gave me problems because I didn't know what to do after grabbing the key, but turns out it was just 2 very precise up dashes. With that, Pico 8 is complete without diagonal dashes. Now we can get the crystal heart very easily, and the cassette tape as well. There aren't any interesting berries in this chapter, so we can finish it off. Well, I missed this one, but now we can. In Golden Reach, we can find the cassette room basically right off the bat. This one is no exception to the rule, as it's stupidly easy. The crystal heart is also a really niche reference to Mario Bros. 3. However, none of the red berries so far gave us any trouble, since they're mostly using the moving block gimmick. That's until we find this red berry. I tried just about anything, many times. I did it perfectly and I was nowhere near close to getting it. So guys, I guess this is it. Another diagonal dash to our count. Is what I would have said in the past. You see, a commentator told me that he had done this challenge and that if I needed any help, he'd provide me with it. So I asked him and he uploaded this on his channel.
Huh?
What the hell? Well, this is actually easier than it looks. Don't ask me how it works, but it's possible. Anyways, that's all there is to this chapter. Never mind, I missed so many berries. None of them are very hard, so now for real. Level 5, Mirror Temple, the spooky one. Huh? I know you expected the jump scare. Well, there isn't one this time around. There are just so many red berries in this chapter that... What was I saying? Oh yeah, there are so many red berries here and there, but really not many are worth talking about. This one here took me ages. Originally, I wanted to just go over it and thought it seemed really close, but even with a crouched dash, I couldn't get past it. I ended up going with a spike jump, a hard task, but not too bad all in all. After a measly 20 whole damn minutes of searching all over the place for berries, I found the cassette tape room and as always got it easily, and then we did a few key skips or something to get the crystal heart. Thing is, that's literally it. The whole chapter is obnoxiously long if you want to grab everything because it's scattered all around, but it's not difficult. However, leaving this level, we encounter the most horrible level for this challenge. You thought 1A or 2A were bad? Well, take a look at this level's cassette tape. Well, the cassette tape is easy, of course. What I meant to say is, take a look at this level's crystal heart. You have to do the bird combination from chapter 1 4 different times. One normal, one reverse sideways, one reverse vertically, and the other completely flipped. You know what this means. Those 3 dashes from 1A turn into 12 whole diagonal dashes in 6A, leaving our total at 17 diagonal dashes. This is horrendously high, but it's not even because of movement or anything. These dashes will not lower in the future unless a game-breaking glitch is discovered. Anyways, this level has no red berries, so we can move on to Summit. In this chapter, apart from the red berries, we also have to get these crystal pieces for the crystal heart. In the first section, it's here, and there seemed to be no way to get up to the right ledge, but you can actually just dash up from the spring. Nothing interesting happens in 500 meters. In 1000 meters, there are dream blocks, but as I mentioned in the last video, they weren't a problem in this section. Or at least that's what I told myself. Take a look at this room. Yep, absolutely wasted. You already know what that means. It's a forced diagonal dash due to them dream blocks. once again. And not just 1 or 2, it's 4. That genuinely sucks and brings our total to
21.
Luckily, the gem and the rest of the berries are a piece of cake. Same goes for the 1500 meter section. We do find the cassette tape room, and beating it is easier than getting to the actual room. What did you expect? The gem here is easy, as are all red berries. The Golden Ridge section's crystal gem takes some serious thinking. First, to even scroll the screen, you have to super and dash horizontally twice. Then, the jump from this ledge to the other side of this wall is extremely precise, but by dashing early, you can get it just by a few pixels. Now I could say the red berries here are also easy and move on, but that's not true. The red berry on the moving platform did actually require activated neurons. The first problem was that the platform just moved too fast, so I quickly climbed and dashed upwards instead. The next problem was that I just couldn't reach the berry without a diagonal dash. For this, you just dash tightly as fast as possible so you can barely cling onto the platform. It took a while, but it is totally doable. The rest of this section is straightforward. The Mirror Temple section is pretty easy, no challenging red berries here. The gem is also not difficult, it's just a hidden path. But then, we enter 3000 meters, our final stretch. Since we did actually get all gems, we can claim our crystal heart here. In this section, there's only one problematic red berry, the one in flag 16. We can get the berry, but updashing to get back afterwards is really close, but just not enough. I tried demo dashing because I thought it would work, and it somehow did. But with that, we finished the main. Oh my goodness, never mind. Out of these berries, this one in particular requires some thinking, or just send it like I did and get it. With those out of the way, core is next. And here, we don't need the cassette tape or crystal heart, since they're at the end of the level anyways. Even better, this level has only 5 strawberries. The first one is pretty straightforward, but I have to actually play the level instead of skipping it. The next one just makes you conserve dashes carefully. This one requires good cycles, which I don't think I'm a fan of. And the last one can be found in the lava rising section, but it's easy. Wait, what do you mean the last one? Weren't there 5? Well yeah, I skipped one, duh. It's just obscure, nothing too hard. We finally made it. I talked about red berries way more than I expected to, but now let's finally get these B-sides going. Forsaken City B-side is pretty easy as expected. The only problematic room comes in right at the start of the first checkpoint, where we must do a spike jump to cross. And to be honest, that's it. Every room seems to be made for this challenge, so to save you explanations for the easy boring rooms, let's skip straight ahead to Old Side B-side. This one is a dreadful one. Of course, it's the dream blocks. It's the dream blocks every single time. A lot of people in my last video commented and told me that if the B-side could be done in less than 2 diagonal dashes, then the main game would take less. However, spoiler alert, it doesn't take less than 2. And it all begins in the first room of the first checkpoint, again. You see, for this blue key, you can dash upwards, but you can't dash back down because of the spikes. You have to take the diagonal path, but at least it's only once. It raises our total to 22 diagonal dashes. The very next room has this. You cannot dash down, you can't go underneath, or at least to my knowledge, which means it makes the total 23. The room with many blue keys was like a puzzle. You normally dash diagonally out from here, but since I can't, my only way out is to go back, which gets difficult because there's barely any space. By using the walls to perfectly position myself, I can dodge battling easily and complete the room. This room is really tight without diagonal dashes, but there's just enough space to fit through. But then, we find this giant room. Let's see if you can spot the issue. Yup, it blocks us completely. However, if you paid enough attention, this only happens when grabbing the last blue key. So if you grab it first, the problem doesn't occur. And then, it is precise, but we can go back up, grab everything, and go back down without diagonal dashes. Right after we meet another one of these long rooms. I'll save you the time. Even though it looks promising, there are 2 required diagonal dashes in this section, adding up to 25 total. That is really unfortunate. There really is no way to avoid these, I'm afraid. With that, we can finish up this godforsaken B-side and move on to Celestial Resort. Cycles are back, which means we'll have to use our dashes carefully. This B-side is kind of underwhelming though. Like, why was I talking more about the red berries than the B-sides, when they are supposed to be the main focus of the video? Well, I guess there really isn't anything special about this. There's one tight dash in the outside, you can jump in between these without dashing, bounce on Oshiro here to regain your dash and get height, and the end also has a precise up dash, but yeah, that's quite literally it. Don't worry, the next one will be much harder. Golden Ridge B-side, one that doesn't sound like it's gonna be a challenge considering what we've seen, but this chapter has some tricks up its sleeve. The very second room shows us just how annoying it can get. Because of the cycles and the alignment, I couldn't get to the last platform. It was either way too far away or I would just die. I did eventually figure out that with the right timing, you can go above it and just barely land on the platform, though it took a while to figure out. In the next room, you can't get enough distance out of the bubble with an updash, so instead I dashed horizontally and climbed the wall with the momentum to jump over it. In the wide platform screen, I had to dash horizontally at the end and climb quickly so that I wouldn't die. Thankfully, there aren't any changing rooms in a while. Unthankfully, we get to this one right here. Have you seen how long that thing took me? Well, what makes this so hard? Well, you start out with some really easy parkour cycles, while this one right here makes the difference. You don't have enough time to get there, and even if you do it fast and dash horizontally, you cannot go under and dash up. There's simply no way to do that. The platform moves too quickly. I really thought there was nothing I could do. I couldn't go faster, and there wasn't any other way to go through except for down below. Or maybe there is another way. You're probably familiar with these kinds of demo dashes. There's a 4 pixel gap where spikes don't have a hitbox, and Madeline is 4 pixels tall when crouched. This means that it would be theoretically possible to demo dash through the spikes. So I turned on variants to get there faster and practice, and after a very long time, I figured out the pixels. This, however, was pretty much impossible to replicate without the slowdown, and I tried for a really very long time. Pause buffering was also inconsistent and didn't work. So what did I do? I figured out another way. You need a perfect super dash, but just when the platform starts to go up, super and dash upwards at the right time while buffering jump. That way you can jump and barely survive. This one sucked. The B-side isn't over yet though, so let's get through the rest of it. This bubble room looks easier than it actually is. This updash in particular was hard to pull off, since I kept hitting the spikes above. In the key room with bubbles, there's a kinda tight updash near the end, but thankfully that's the last hurdle of the chapter. Let's just hope there's nothing crazy left to beat. The beginning of Spooky Temple B-side is actually kinda hard. Since you can't move during red bubbles, you have to control your dashes perfectly. First, do a really good updash here, followed by a horizontal dash soon enough. And make sure you just stop the bubble at the end of the room. Then, these moving blocks move really quickly, so you have to follow the rhythm. Grabbing the keys isn't a problem, however, after opening this door with one of those easy to get keys, you get put in a not so easy to beat room. It's red bubbles once again. This one here is a what in the world am I supposed to do kind of bubble. First, I tried dashing immediately after getting in the bubble, but it didn't seem to work. By pause buffering, I could perfectly dash down and wall jump off of this non-existent ledge, but it kept on going. Later on, I did figure out a more consistent setup. By doing this, instead of bubbling diagonally in the next part, I was stupid and forgot I could do that. But then, the final one was the nail on the coffin. An updash just couldn't get to the bubble and survive. So I just kept on trying for a while to make it work. If this is possible, it's like the tightest dash in all of Celeste. I had to do a spike jump to get it. But still, you have to do that all in a row. With that damn room out of the way, let's see if there are any more problems. To finish off this section, I did an epic skip that literally skipped 2 seconds. All the Seeker and Theo stuff is straightforward, up until the second to last room in the chapter. It took some smart dashes to actually beat it. But with that, we finish off Mirror Temple B-side, since the last room remains practically unchanged. Reflection B-side has a couple of tight dashes here and there, such as this up dash in this one room, but the Falling section has a few difficult rooms. In this one, you get to a wall with one dash, which needs to be used to get over the spikes. An up dash won't cut it, so after trying a lot, you can get a perfect horizontal demo to get over them. The last room where you go down is also a problem. I had to pause buffer because of how precise it was, but it was still not good enough. I could get to this crystal, but afterwards I couldn't get to the wall, neither with an up dash or a left dash. That's because it's impossible with a cardinal direction dash. So we have to do the tag I mentioned earlier. There are spikes here after all, which means in theory we could just go through these. Yet somehow I actually got it, and I died right after. But I got it again in the very next attempt, don't ask me how. I kept on pause buffering because I did not want to risk my chances of dying. That was certainly interesting. The room right after requires a super and some quick dashes, but we finally get to the Governor boss fight rematch. This presents us with some tricky rooms, like this one where you dash up to grab onto the falling block and then grab onto another falling block, or the next one where it's like literally impossible to hit her at all. Except for attempt number 999 of course, where suddenly I did hit her. Thankfully though, that's it for the challenging rooms. The rest are straightforward or just about what you'd expect. Time for Summit B-side, a pain of a chapter. Let's go section by section. The first one has this problematic room where we barely get above the spike and hit the spring, and then we have to bounce on the highest possible part of the spring to be able to barely cross the last set of spikes. 500 meters has nothing, surprisingly. Man, Forsaken City has never got anything to offer. "1,000 meters brings back dream blocks, or should I say nightmare blocks, because this room exists. You know the drill, nothing we can do about it, but for some reason there are 4 of these, my goodness. This brings our total to 29. In 1500 meters, there's one really interesting room, that being the very last one of the section. First, make sure you always bounce on the spring at the highest possible point. The first one requires 2 up dashes, followed by another 2 up dashes. Then grab onto the wall so that you can position yourself again and wait for the right cycle. Do it again and barely grab onto the next wall. Do it one last time and pray that cycles won't get in your way, and then you're out of there. The Mirror Temple section has one of the dashes I saved thanks to someone else. I didn't spend too long in this room because I quickly ruled out that this was impossible. Dashing down and up doesn't work, and down and horizontal doesn't work either. If you exit the bubble on a horizontal dash, you get closer, but nowhere near enough height or distance to get to the purple orb. There are also no spots to demo dash in here, making this room completely impossible. Or so I thought. Someone in the Discord server, by doing a demo into the bubble, you get an RG. Your hitbox is higher, and by mixing this with a perfectly timed horizontal dash and a perfect vertical one, you can actually beat the room without the diagonal dash. I am so glad that's possible, to be honest. But then, we reach the peak of the mountain. This is where we encounter an unskippable diagonal dash. Flag 16. You definitely need both the height and distance from those diagonal dashes. Even if you bounce off of the top of the spring and do demos, nothing works. When I asked in the Discord, everyone had the same answer. So for us, this will be our 30th diagonal dash. Moving on from that impossible one, we have flag 9. This is just outrageous. Everything's fine until we reach this section, where you clearly need at least one diagonal dash to get across. Yep, I did try both horizontal and vertical and all that, but if you've been paying attention, you might have noticed that there are spikes here, which means... Yep, this did take me 45 minutes total, but it is possible. The rest of this B-side is straightforward, so let's move on to the final B-side. Core B-side still has the no dash refresh gimmick, which makes a lot of dashes substantially harder than what they already were. The ice balls room, I'm not kidding, these things are called ice balls, was inconsistent because I kept trying to replicate my usual strategy. It did eventually work, but there were better ways to do it. The very next room is troublesome as well. You'll probably remember it, it is one of the hardest rooms in Core B-side after all. There are 3 sets of spikes we need to conquer with increasing difficulty. The first one is the simplest one, just dash forwards. The second one can be done with momentum from the wall and 2 good dashes. The third set gave me much more trouble because I couldn't get past the second one with just 1 dash, and if I used the 2 dashes I had, I wouldn't have enough for the third one. Turns out that demo dashing just at the right moment gets you there, but this took me a while to figure out. And to be honest, that's it. Every other part of this B-side is pretty easy, and it's gotten to the point where I need to point out just the really difficult ones, because otherwise you wouldn't be seeing this video right now. Don't worry though, cause this is not over yet. We still got 8 C-sides to conquer. But at least these are really short. Let's go through them. Forsaken City Room 1 is exactly the same, and so is Room 2. Room 3 is the hardest and longest one in each C-side, so there was obviously gonna be something here. Specifically, this upward slash here, which is kinda tight, and this sick enter. This isn't necessary, but can we just appreciate just how sick it looks? Outside C-side now, let's hope those dream blocks don't give us any more diagonal dashes. These are the last ones we'll encounter, probably. Rooms 1 and 2 are both free, and Room 3 doesn't usually require diagonal dashes, so hey, nice. Celestial Resort is a step up in difficulty though. The very first room had me puzzled. Up dashes are just too slow to get through the entirety of this one in one good alignment. That's why I had to test out everything and ended up incorporating a horizontal dash near the last row of dust bunnies. The second room is the easy one here, and the third room is also kinda tough because you have to reach the crystal heart without diagonal dashes. Oshiro is here to help us though, we can bounce on his head and reach the heart. The last room of Golden Ridge also took some thinking. I went through it entirely using demos. I needed those pixels from Archie's and just from crouching to get past the spikes here. Other than that, the entire C-side remains unchanged. Mirror Temple C-side also remains entirely unchanged until the very last part, where the developers just started spamming crystals everywhere. Be careful with your dashes and your gold. Rooms 1 and 2 of Reflection C-side don't change much, but the third one really does. Here, you would normally dash diagonally so that Kevin goes down, but nuh-uh. So instead of waiting until he crashes with the wall, drop early and up dash. The last bumper section is a bit precise too, but nothing scary. Now, Summit C-side. This one is scary. The first room is trivial. The second one becomes much more difficult, but it's trivial compared to whatever the hell the third screen is. This screen is notoriously known as the hardest screen in Celeste. To be honest, I'm tired of writing this script and I'll probably be tired of editing too at this point, so I'll just show you the final run. Okay, yes, I did pause buffer, but I mean, what do you want me to do? Anyways, I can actually talk about 8C, because at least I have time to talk, not like in whatever madness 7C was. Here comes the point where we have to use the tech I mentioned at the start. Instead of hyper dashing like the game tells us to, we'll crouch dash forwards and press jump, which essentially does the same thing. No, this time it cannot be beaten with supers, unlike most of Farewell, and we also can't just dash forwards, so yeah, we have to use this, though it won't count to our total, cause this is literally not diagonal. Do you have working brain cells? Anyways, room 2 has a pretty precise dash here, and room 3 is long as heck. Dream blocks return, unfortunately, but thankfully they don't become an issue if you handle them well. But they are still annoying. Then there's another crystal spam section where we only needed cardinal dashes only anyways. And then 2 last demo hypers to end it off. And I miss input and I have to restart. Wow, this is so fun. Anyways, it is possible, and with that, we finished off all seasides. There's only one more thing to do. The Moonberry. Yep, we're getting that too. If you saw the other video, you would know this room took me 2 hours to beat originally. Well, how lucky am I? I get to do that again! I do not know how, but I got it within 10 minutes of starting, and actually got to the checkpoint without dying a single time by abusing the jellyfish. To be fair, I was really logged in because I didn't want to risk the chances of me having to beat that again. The climb up to the Moonberry room was actually not that bad, since it focuses on wall bounces, which requires up dashes anyways. Then we kill ourselves, in-game. But the actual Moonberry room is here. The first time I did this in my playthrough, it took me really long, but now that I've learned that you can drop the jellyfish and dash up into it, I totally cheesed this whole thing. I guess the dash spam section in the end is a bit harder. It didn't take me long to get it. Anyways, that concludes this big video. Total amount of diagonal dashes needed to 100% Celeste is 30, but it might be 29 with spinner stunning. The other Celeste video really blew up for me, and it's now my most viewed video, so thank you so much. Hopefully this video does as well as the other one, cause my channel really needs a bump right now. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this challenge as much as I did, and if you have any more ideas, let me know. Thanks for watching.